Hello and welcome to One Storyteller, where today we're talking about. Well, I have to wait 10 seconds so that YouTube gets over its censorship thing. There we go. It's the Kill Yourself chapter, because my goodness, does that come up several times over. Yourself and everybody else.
Yeah,
A great chapter. I
it's
liked
it's
this one.
really good. Okay, I'm glad. It's very dramatic,
It is very
and it's
dramatic.
got a lot of good dialogue.
Yes. It is it's a nice part two to the Pelennor Fields. It's the Pyre of Denethor is the chapter. I don't think I mentioned that. Return of the King, chapter 7. Um, and yeah, we deal with Gandalf, Pippin, Denethor, and Faramir. And Baragond is there too, I guess. But
Yeah, he's kind of important.
yeah, it's the internals of what happened in Minas Tirith instead of the everything else that happened on the outside. So hopefully, well, who knows? YouTube is a little silly, but I don't think we're big enough for them to pay attention to us. So this probably won't get
Probably not.
restricted, even though the topic of the chapter is, as previously mentioned, a little spicy sometimes. How do you feel? You said
What's
you liked this chapter. What
yeah,
about it stands out to you? Is it just dialogue or what?
mm,
I mean, you like every chapter, so it could just be,
that's
natural
true.
bias
Well, not every chapter. I
mostly.
disliked the end of the Fellowship of the Ring.
Understandable. Me too.
Um, for this one, I this is like one of the clearest times we see two different worldviews or perspectives, however you want to say it, coming up against each other. Basically, with Gandalf and Denethor having this very dramatic debate in a tomb where he's trying to burn himself alive.
Yeah,
So it's hard to beat that for a dramatic discussion.
it
Um,
is. It is indeed.
and it has there's a there's another channel on YouTube called First Timers,
Hmm.
and he was reading through Lord of the Rings, and he found this chapter very Shakespearean, which I think makes sense.
I can see it.
But it's so because it has the really intense tragedy and irony caught up in that, which I'll talk about more later for Denethor. Uh, but Tolkien, it's just a sad ending for Denethor. Everyone else is able to recover from it, and that kind of separates it from actual Shakespeare.
No. Well, most of the people are able to recover from it. There are
Yeah,
the guy Baragon killed. Spoiler alert. He is not going to recover from this, and a couple others as well. But
that's true.
um, there are consequences for your actions, and they do not just impact you. And that is true in Gandalf's case, and that's true in Denethor's case, and that's true in Faramir's case, and that's true in Baragon's case, because every one of these people is taking some action that then leads to other consequences. If Faramir had never gone out to Osgiliath, kind of stupidly, but obedient to his father and as best he could, if he had never gone out, they would never be in the situation. If Denethor had never gone crazy, they would never be in the situation. If Baragond hadn't attacked these people, he wouldn't be in his situation. And Gandalf even makes a comment about that later as well. The opportunity cost of him saving Faramir has condemned some other people, and so every
Yeah,
every one of the characters is coming at the same situation from a different perspective, and some of them are objectively better than the others,
yes,
but they are all pretty interesting. I think it's yeah, it's curious. Maybe I've pointed this out before. I don't remember. I woke up at like 4:30 this morning with this thought, and so I texted it to myself, and then got up and read the rest of the chapter. But uh, a lot of Lord of the Rings, especially in the early parts, especially in Fellowship, and then a little bit in the beginning of Two Towers, is about the inaction of people who are not willing to choose to go,
yeah,
who are content to be complacent and sit back and such like that. So a lot of Lord of the Rings is about condemning that kind of inaction. This whole Denethor experience is kind of the flip side. It's about condemning someone's action, because it would
Yeah,
be better if Denethor did nothing instead of doing the evil thing. And so
it's true. Yeah,
it kind of moderates, or the Lord of the Rings moderates its own message. It's not doing anything is better than doing nothing, but doing good is better than nothing, and I guess doing nothing is better than evil, but neither of those two last options are very good.
yeah.
And Denethor's kind of the example of that.
I like that. Yeah,
So we pick up with Pippin and Gandalf. The Witch King has just flown off, so he's on his way to go get killed. And now Pippin gets to actually talk to Gandalf, which was the whole reason why he ran out to find Gandalf in the first place. Brief little conversation says, "Hey, Denethor's about to kill Faramir." And Gandalf hems and haws just a little bit, but when he hears that, well, okay, fine. And he goes to sort Denethor rather than go out on the battlefield to see what else he might be able to do. Kind of a question there. Is that the right call for him to make? And arguably, I don't know.
yeah,
I think by the end of the chapter, arguably, we still don't know.
yeah. That'd be interesting to talk about at the end. Maybe
Sure,
that would be cool.
sure. I believe Gandalf's reasoning is, I could go out on the battlefield and save others, but nobody else can go into Minas Tirith to save Faramir. And that's why
Yeah,
he picks what he does.
I think that's what it boils down to. Yeah,
Which is, that's about as fair as you can get. I mean, it's a good attempt, but then who knows what happens otherwise. Well, Gandalf will tell us what happens otherwise, because he can see out on the battlefield where no one else can see, but I'm going to ignore that line's in there because that's a little silly. Somehow,
okay.
we can talk about it at the end if we remember. Somehow there's some implication with Denethor wanting to burn himself and Faramir alive, that Sauron has broken into Denethor's mind, and something's wrong there, and we'll see a little confirmation of that later on.
Yeah, Gandalf begins by saying, "Even in the heart of our stronghold, the enemy has the power to strike us. For his will it is that is at work." Yeah. Like you're saying, we'll see more specifics of this once we get into the meat of the chapter, I guess. But Denethor thinks he's serving himself, but he's not.
Yeah. Well, arguably he kind of is, but it's not just himself.
Yeah. And that's what Gandalf, I think, is trying to educate Pippin on here, is when you're consumed by what should we say for Denethor? Selfishness, that works.
Yeah.
Then ironically, you're not really doing much for yourself. You're just conquering ground for the powerful forces of evil that are in the world.
Yeah. The
And
choices.
that kind of goes back to what you said about the consequences that can't be taken back from what Denethor chose to do.
Yeah. The choices you make do not just affect you, they affect everybody around you. This is true with, biblically, I mean, it's true with sin and evil. It's also true with righteousness and good, and just in a physical sense as well. Denethor's mental illness, shall we say, does not just affect himself, it's actively involved in the murder of his son, or attempted murder of his son, and, getting all of his people to comply with it. So there are a whole lot of people who are having PTSD by the end of this chapter, and it is all Denethor's fault, because it doesn't just affect him, it's hurting everybody else around him. Selfishness allows you to ignore that, but all you do is hurt yourself and other people. And that's what Denethor stands for. A great guy. I love him. He's very compelling as a character, but I kind of hate him at the same time.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
That's the point, I think.
I got one other early thing to point
Sure.
out here. We're going to see Denethor is really not living up to the kind of leadership he needs to be fulfilling.
Mhm.
But Gandalf, we know he's ready to be a leader, and it's his leadership that kind of allows him to challenge Denethor in this. Because a big obstacle for everyone else is Denethor's in charge. I don't know if I can go stop him from murdering his son. Is he really doing that? What's happening? And Gandalf is like, okay, don't care. Let's go do it.
Yeah.
But we're used to seeing that from Gandalf. Um, but we also see another ready leadership in Imrahil.
Mhm.
Imrahil says, Rohan is here. We have to go. Right, Gandalf? And Gandalf says, I can't go. I got to go somewhere else. You do that.
Yeah.
And he does. And ostensibly, he organizes everyone he can get in Gondor to come out, which we saw was important in the previous chapter.
Yeah. Half the salvation of Aemir is because Aemir did something stupid, but Imrahil was there to back him up and kept him around for a while.
Yeah. Yeah.
Isn't there also a line that that Denethor should have been the one out leading the army?
That wouldn't surprise me. Uh, but if it's here, I must have glossed over it.
I thought there was. Your part, Gandalf speaking to Denethor, your part is to go out to the battle of your city where maybe death awaits you. This you know in your heart. Uh, right before he says, authority isn't given to you to order the hour of your death and such like that. So, really, Imrahil, cracked out of his mind, he's doing Denethor's job for him. It's
Yeah.
part of why we love Imrahil. He's actually willing to go out and organize a defense and try to help Rohan. Whereas a different thing that Denethor has done is he has called Rohan to the area to defend Gondor, and then he is intent on killing himself and destroying Gondor. So basically, he's called all of Rohan to their deaths, and then just wants to leave them to it instead of doing anything to help them. So, talk about consequences. And we'll see that as well represented later in the chapter, much more literally.
Yeah.
As they're going, Gandalf and Pippin, they're traveling up. There's a gate that should be locked, but it's not locked. The porter is dead, and somebody has took his key. Has taken his key. It would help if I could do English. Sauron has there's kind of like a, well, who did that? That seems like something bad, and it is something bad. That's accounted for later, but we'll leave it a little bit for then. What they do find upon getting near the pyre area, I guess it's like the tomb. There's a tomb up in the inner citadel or something like that.
Yeah. There's that the White Tower at the top of the city.
Yeah.
And there's these paths from that White Tower courtyard with the white tree and all that lead back into the mountains where there's these tombs
Okay.
and apparently also crematory chambers. So,
Well, it's about to be a crematory chamber, no matter how intentional that was. Yes, there is. So they are all back in that building, and several guards are trying to break in and get Denethor the wood and the fire and the oil that he wants. And Baragond is actually holding the door against them. He's
yeah,
slightly killed a couple of them.
two. Yeah.
Continuing to fight off the other couple or few that are there, trying to block them off. There is kind of a, when I read the first half of the chapter, there was kind of a question of like, why are these people doing this? Because it seems, at first it seems like the regular guards of the Citadel have also fallen prey to something of Sauron's, or at least Gandalf is saying, this is Sauron's work. Upon reading the rest of the chapter, I think they're just following human commands,
Yes.
and
Yes.
they're really dedicated to obedience, even though they're really not thinking about what that means.
Yeah.
Which in many ways is something we saw similar to Faramir,
Mhm.
although Faramir is clearly aware of what it means, but was willing to do it anyway. I think by the end of
Yeah,
the chapter,
that's the difference. Yeah.
yeah. Would you agree that the guards really didn't understand what they were doing? Because that's kind of
Well,
that's the impression I came away with, is they didn't really realize what would happen if they did what Denethor wanted.
I mean, maybe. But I think the clearest thing we can say is they're letting the simple morality of, like, I've received an order, I need to do that. That's a lot of notes.
I'm sorry, I needed to plug my computer in.
No words. They're letting that supersede. Hey, this he might be commanding us to do something bad.
No. Yeah, it's always easy. It's the path of least resistance is go get the wood and at least feign ignorance of what's about to happen. But
Mm-hmm.
when,
I'm not responsible. I'm just doing what I was told.
yeah.
Yeah.
So the one might argue the best and most effective people are those who are willing to not only hear the command, but also think about the command and see if it is good and worth following. Although there are consequences for that, and that's
Yeah.
also detailed in this chapter, which I thought was very cool, and
Yeah.
that elevated the chapter into not just, oh, that was fine, but actually, oh, that's really good and nice to
Yes.
consider. Again, we'll see that at the
You,
end.
yeah. Yeah.
There are basically Gandalf steps up and says, "Hey, quit fighting each other. This is stupid. Hold on."
Mm-hmm.
Denethor opens the door and says, I want the fire. Help me get the fire." And Gandalf just being present kind of disarms Denethor. There's a literal element to that, and he rips his sword away magically. And then there's a metaphorical element to that where Denethor is taken aback and not really sure what to do now that Gandalf's there. It turns
Mm-hmm.
out Gandalf's presence kind of helps fight off a lot of what Sauron has to do, but when it is so deeply seated in an individual, uh, it doesn't go away forever. And that's what we see with Denethor, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So what do you want to say about this whole conversation that takes place and all the
Oh
trappings
my.
around it?
Oh, there's a lot. Oh, well, in the Siege of Gondor chapter, we already saw that. So Boromir had these hints of intense skepticism about the quest to destroy the ring. Boromir would rather trust in the strength of men, and particularly his own strength, than relying on. Literally, the plan is let's use weak hobbits because it's kind of a dumb plan, and Sauron won't expect it, and we'll that doesn't work. So we're trusting in Providence, and Boromir's like, but what if we didn't do that? And Boromir is that skepticism, among some other things, leads to his death ultimately,
No.
because that's kind of the way the ring wormed its way into his heart. But Denethor has that same skepticism, among other things. And I had a thought also this morning, where if you like really zoom out for this chapter, I think, well, it's kind of obvious, I suppose, but it's just a very the reason there's a conflict here at all is because of a very fundamental worldview difference. Um, oh no, I'm in danger of rambling too much. Give me 1 second. When we met Faramir in the Two Towers,
Mhm.
there's that beautiful. I'm gonna misquote it because I just can't remember it exactly.
That's fine.
But
I don't.
they have basically this prayer or whatever after or before their meal,
Mhm.
um, where they look west toward Numenor that was, to Valamar, which is, and to I don't know. I don't suppose it has a name, but that which is to come in the future. Basically, their equivalent of heaven. So Faramir and the people around him are cultivating that perspective, which is why he can let the ring go, which Boromir couldn't really do. Um, but Denethor, Gandalf represents that part of the West and that trust in providence, and Denethor just cannot. He was a wise, kingly man, wiser and greater than Theoden, but he knew that, and he trusted in that, and eventually that failed really badly.
Turns out when you are convinced that you are smart, even if you are smart, it never goes well.
Yes,
I think that's
I think
correct.
yeah, we already saw that sort of with Saruman,
Yeah.
but somehow it's a lot worse here.
Yeah. Well, and I don't. Is it worse here? I guess that's an interesting question. I wouldn't. Denethor has not terrorized a whole countryside.
No,
So from that perspective, it's not worse. His will has been more
for sure, for
overrun,
sure. Yeah.
probably. And there is a deeper sickness in Denethor, but I don't know. The
Yeah,
the
I
less
guess I
capable
guess
you
what
are,
I
the less capable you are to do bad, I guess.
yeah, for Saruman, it doesn't hit quite the same way because when we meet him, he's already fallen.
Yeah.
But we're kind of seeing Denethor in the midst of falling.
Yeah.
I think that makes it more sad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, another thing is Denethor's end here is very final. Saruman's end was, you can't be a wizard anymore. Go and make better choices for yourself. And we'll see him make other choices
Choices.
for himself later on. But Saruman has potential to come back from that. Not to the same extent, but, he doesn't
There's
have to.
there's a chance. There's
He's
hope.
he's alive.
Yeah.
Denethor does not make it out of this chapter alive, and there is, while there is life, there is hope, and Denethor is not going to have that for very long.
Yeah.
So, a depressing individual. It is.
There's
The first thing that happens here is Gandalf just walks in and gets Faramir and pulls him off, and says, "Okay, like I
first
got
things
him.
first.
Let's
Yeah.
let's take care of him." And then they have this whole conversation in the movie. It's very dramatic, and Denethor and Faramir are both on the pyre, and then Pippin has to
It's
rescue
an action scene.
Faramir
Yeah.
while he's slightly on fire. Here, Gandalf just kind of walks in, grabs Faramir, walks out, and then says, "Denethor, you're being stupid. Quit it." So it's a little bit different setting, but and I think the movie makes Denethor more redeemable than the book does.
I I think that's true too.
Yeah, which kind of fair, but also kind of fair in terms of you don't want people to be absolutely horrifically depressed by that scene, but also you kind of do because that's it. I mean, that's just realistic and kind of what happens. So I don't
Yeah.
know. Merits to both. This is just a different kind of setting than the movie was. Um, Gandalf looks at Faramir. I think pretty much the first thing he says is, "Look, he's not dead yet. I don't know if he'll be alive. Like he may well die, but you don't know that he's dead yet. There's still a
Yeah.
chance." And this is where he says, it's basically Faramir's parallel to Denethor's situation. Denethor should be out fighting on the field of battle, in which he may well die, but it's not a given, and so he should go out and try it. And
Yeah.
Faramir may well die from this fever, but it's not a given, so you need to give the boy a chance. But
Yes.
Denethor, in shirking his responsibility, has taken away Faramir's choice. And
Mhm.
that's a thing that comes up a couple of different times is Denethor is making choices for those under him, where they're not able or willing to make the choice for themselves. So that's part of his violation is in terms of being a leader and a commander, the
Yeah.
steward that he's supposed to be. And
Right.
Instead, he is likened to a heathen king who is under the dominion of the dark power, which is
Pretty harsh.
yeah, but also rather true. It's an
Yes.
interesting statement, even because that is it's a mix of reality and kind of belief.
Mm.
Because Denethor is not the king, but he is certainly heathen and under the dominion of the dark power. And Denethor, it's pretty evident he believes himself to be a king, even though he's not. And so Denethor's fantasies have kind of cooked up for himself this false reality that he's trying to live in. He is imagining things. In the modern day, we would call it living your truth. Realistically, that's what it is, isn't it?
Yeah, no, I agree with you.
But realistically, what it is he's lying to himself, and there are consequences that are falling on him and everybody around him because he's decided to pursue this path.
Mhm.
Wake up to reality is kind of the message to Denethor.
Yeah, it is. It's sometime we should talk about. I think it'd be too long now, but I can say a little bit about it.
A lot of things are too
It
long
is
now, but we're here.
Denethor and Theoden have inverse character arcs.
Yep.
It's very fascinating. When we meet Theoden, Gandalf barges in, and you don't know if Theoden's going to be convinced to take the heroic choice to vulnerably or make himself vulnerable to be a good leader, but he does. And here, Denethor is kind of slinking off into the darkness, the last place where he feels like he can make choices where he's still in charge. And Gandalf once again barges in and says, "Hey, you should do something else." And it's like when you shine a light on a cockroach, it's going to like scurry away into the darkness. But he doesn't have to be a cockroach. He could make a courageous choice when Gandalf is challenging everything he's done even up to this point.
Yeah. Well, it's I mean, First Corinthians 3 is on my mind because, we just kind of taught through that a couple days ago, but each man gets a choice on what he builds, and you can either
Oh, yeah,
build your life on something that is gold and valuable, or you can build your life on something that is straw and worthless. Everybody's going to hit the fire at some point. Like everybody's going to have a come to Gandalf moment,
yeah,
and then you have to reckon with what's happened. Theoden begins at the point where he is beyond all reason, and so does Denethor in many ways. When Gandalf first comes to him, he spends the entire conversation avoiding Gandalf and just wasting time.
yeah,
And so they both come in this kind of mode to ignore Gandalf and wisdom and the broader world around them, just in pursuit of themselves. But Theoden eventually wakes up to it, whereas Denethor just keeps on going until he suffers a mental break and does all the stuff that's about to happen. So
yeah.
they they do both get their choices, and they evidence the character that they have built over both of them years and years of rule or stewardship, as it were, being
Mm-hmm.
in charge.
I'm struck by there's just a lot of good lines here.
Mm-hmm.
I should have organized a little bit more what I wanted to say. But one of the things is yeah, that's two things. Also thinking about when the hobbits are talking to Faramir in the waterfall hideout,
Mm-hmm.
as Faramir gives the hobbits a history lesson about Gondor. He says eventually there arose kings who didn't attend to the people and didn't really rule well,
Mm.
but they locked themselves in towers trying to divine the future, trying to find ways to cheat death. And since implication, and this is also something in the real world too, is when you start seeing death as a big problem, like in a very materialistic view of things, you don't really care much about helping people because they're just going to die anyway. You don't care about your legacy, your children or family very much either. Um, because they're just consumed with their own goals, and Denethor is acting that out. Um, the last thing he has authority over, he says, Gandalf says later on, "We're needed." Gandalf says, "I, Gandalf, you, Denethor, are still needed. There's a lot that you can do. Like you have the capability and therefore the responsibility to keep doing good for the kingdom you're steward over." But Denethor says, "You might win this battle, but Sauron has more armies, and we can't beat the armies. So what hope is there?" Um, Denethor says at the end of that horrible paragraph, "It is time for all to depart. He would not be slaves." He really wants to be in charge and not be captured by Sauron. And so, in the midst of everything else falling apart, instead of humbling himself, the last thing that he has authority to do is to kill himself and escape enslavement.
Yeah.
And he thinks he's, I don't know, outwitting fate or something,
Yeah. Well,
which is pretty messed up.
he's determining fate instead of fate determining him, right? Because the
Yeah, he
city is,
wishes.
but well, yeah, that's what he pretends. That's another way he lies to himself and makes
Yeah.
up this existence. Um, that is interesting. If death is your villain, we give up whatever we can. We make sacrifices in order to defeat the things that are villains and evil. And most of the
Yeah.
time that's good, but when your villain is the wrong thing, like death, then you sacrifice all sorts of stuff to defeat death, including, well, I'm going to kill myself so I can die early, so I can determine my own time instead of letting death do it for me, or instead of letting fate or destiny or whatever it is determine my
Mm-hmm.
path. I want to do it instead, which is just fundamentally like stupid because you're still
Yeah.
playing into you're still dead, right? You're still playing into its hands. You're just helping it accomplish its goal faster, which is really dumb. But
Yeah. I'll say one more thing. You got me thinking a little bit more.
Mhm.
It is what you said. It's not as much a trying to defeat death as, at least in practice, trying to defeat fate
Yeah.
or God.
Yeah.
That comes back to that worldview thing, I guess I was trying to talk about earlier. Um, yeah, even everything Denethor is doing is against the West, against God, forsaking responsibility, clinging to authority like an idol,
Yeah.
um, and then seeing death as an enemy. And since we were talking about the Silmarillion, the one true God in Middle Earth, who the Valar serve, uh, he starts the trend of calling death the gift of men, but men don't really think about it that long,
Hmm.
or think about it that way for that long. And Denethor clearly isn't either.
Yeah. Yeah, well, he lived a life of defiance, and so he dies as he lives, which is to say, the end of this kind of self-deterministic pathway is you're always going to die anyway, and so you may
Yeah,
as well do it at your own convenience, but that's a stupid end. So it's Christianity is nice because you have things to look forward to other than just dying at the end.
yes,
There's a reason that it's emphasized that Jesus defeated death as the enemy, so death doesn't have any dominion anymore, and you don't have to spend your whole life trying to get out of it because that's not really how it works.
yeah,
If only Denethor had a little bit of some kind of hope, he could see past it. but he doesn't,
Exactly.
and so
Yeah.
he just goes for it. Um, it's curious. So Denethor, at first, there's a moment, there's like a page or two where Denethor is considering this, and where he is kind of snapped out of his stupor and is willing to think about what Gandalf is saying. And then there is a very dramatic moment where Denethor uh, goes Joker mode, and he switches to thee and thou, and goes back to I guess more formal language is how it stands out to me, and I assume that's what it's supposed to be. Um, but instead of considering what Gandalf has to say, he starts to mock him and ridicule him and talk about how he's in charge and he knows what he's doing and he commands the fire anyway, and just he full sends to his plan of killing himself. There's no nice way to say that. Um, it is at least associated with, like, the thing he does is he starts going down this weird kind of language right after he pulls out the Palantir. He had one of those, by the way, the Seeing Stone that
Yeah.
that let him wrestle with Sauron, but also let Sauron weasel his way inside the back door in Denethor's head. Probably not good to consider the works of the enemy too closely, even if it starts in a good place. He is fully convinced that Sauron is winning at least the war, and even this present battle, because Denethor can see the black ships coming. He doesn't
Yes.
realize that the black ships actually have Gondor on them, and that's salvation. But I mean, the truest or the best lie is a lie that has truth in it. That is,
Yeah.
hey, the black ships are coming, and it lets you make those implications. Whereas if Denethor held off, 5 minutes, he would see Aragorn and the rest of Gondor coming out of the ships to save everybody. Not literally 5 minutes, but you understand. And so there's just like he he was so close, but so far, and you really don't know how life's going to play out until you let it play out. But he
Yeah.
doesn't. Part of just there's no nice way to say it. Part of the stupidity of suicide is you just don't know what's going to happen, and a lot of times things end up better than you think they will. And Denethor kind of misses that.
Yeah.
Commits
Denethor's
so
got
hard.
his a lot of other problems in addition to
Oh yeah.
suicide here.
Oh yeah.
But that's a important commonality. And like you already said, it's a hope issue.
Mhm.
He says the world's not going to be different than the way I see it right now,
Yep.
and I don't want to live in the world I see.
Yep.
And he doesn't leave room for a heavenly perspective.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yep.
No sense that things could improve. No sense that Sauron could ever lose this battle. And if he does lose this battle, well, he's going to win the war anyway. So what was the point? Well, there's a lot of point to winning a battle. Even if you can't win the war, at least you're making a statement. I mean, at
Yeah.
least there's that. At the very least, if nothing else changes. But there are plenty of other options, and he is unwilling to consider anyone's perspective outside of his own. His own perspective being one that is poisoned by the mind of the enemy, who wants to win and so is feeding you false information about how he's already won and how he can't possibly lose, and all these other things. Watch your sources of information. They will get in your head, and you will not know. You will not be able to think as well for yourself, or at least not as clearly.
Right.
Denethor absolutely fails.
Mm-hmm.
It's
I Oh, go ahead.
it's useful to have a spy in the enemy's camp. It's really not useful when the spy is leaking you false information because he's been won over by the villain. And it turns out when Sauron is your own spy, he's not giving you stuff for free. He's not on your team. Just common sense stuff. But the smartest people don't have common sense. And that's kind of where Denethor falls. Not a dumb
Mm-hmm.
guy, but a really dumb guy at the same time.
Yeah. I have a couple of things to say about the last things he says to Gandalf.
Sure.
Uh, one of them is, "I will not be thy tool. I'm the steward. I won't step down."
Mhm.
Even if Aragorn was from the line of Isildur, that's the King of Gondor's, like, they're just cousins, right? It's the line of Isildur, where they're the kings of the North Kingdom, not Gondor.
Yeah.
Which isn't, that sounds like a good excuse if you don't know how uh, what inheritance works, uh, but it doesn't work. It won't hold up in court.
Nope. I mean,
But he says, "I won't be that. I won't be your tool." And well, aside from having a seeing stone, that's something else. Like Saruman, is Denethor fears people are scheming against him and want power because, on the whole, that's how he's come to view things, which is a very Sauron-like way of looking at the world.
mhm.
And it's not an accident then that Saruman, and Denethor all think the idea of sending the ring into Mordor is like the most stupid thing ever.
Yeah. Yeah.
The other thing here, Gandalf was, I don't know, it's interesting. Denethor says all this, and then Gandalf says, "What would you have if your will could have its way? If things could be the way you wanted them to be, what would you want?" And he like gives this really, it's almost insolent, but also kind of honorable. "I want things to be like they were before," basically, is the first thing he says.
Mhm.
And then he says this at the end, "But if doom denies this to me, then I will have not. I will have nothing, neither life diminished, nor love halved, nor honor abated." Woo. The first part kind of goes to that home theme in Fellowship of the Ring too.
Mhm.
As a temptation we've seen for Frodo, especially, that he's had to get over is you can't just twiddle your thumbs and hope you can keep things the way they always were.
No.
And Denethor especially should know that. But you come to the end, the climactic portion of this argument between Denethor and Gandalf, and turns out that's the thing holding him back at this point too.
Mhm.
Is instead of looking to the future to what he can do, he's just in despair and discontent about the present.
Yeah. Which understandable. At
Yeah.
the same time, do not look upon the former days and say they were better than these, because the
Yeah.
reality is they're not. And the other reality is you can't go back. So
Yeah.
what's the point? I mean, Denethor is unreasonable. No one can talk to him is the problem.
Oh yeah.
He has predetermined he's not going to listen to Aragorn because
Mm-hmm.
he's just a dumb ranger. Oh, and maybe he is the king, but I don't want to listen to him anyway
Yeah.
because he's just a dumb ranger, and so he's already predetermined. I mean, as much as he doesn't like fate, he sure is setting fate for himself. When Aragorn
Yes.
comes to the throne, which he will, there is no stopping him unless he dies, right? There is no legal precedent for him to not come to the throne. Everyone will support his ascension. Denethor will not submit. Okay, that means he's either going to get exiled or he's going to get killed. There is no other option for him. And when
Yeah.
you write yourself off like that, well, this seems like a more reasonable solution because I can't have what I want. So may as well, not be around anymore. And while I'm at it, even one of those things that he says, even before that, I want to be the lord of the city in peace. I want to leave my chair to a son after me who would be his own master and not wizard's pupil, which is code for not Faramir. I want Boromir, right? I want someone who thinks for himself, which Boromir doesn't really. He
You know,
thinks as his
oh,
father
I
says.
didn't even pick up on that
Yeah.
exactly, but it's true. That's so terrible.
He would rather leave no son behind him than a son that Gandalf has had any influence on, which is
Yeah.
wild.
I don't even
I
know if
hate him.
Denethor. I think you're right. I don't think Denethor would admit that clear, like
No.
that even to himself. But you're right. That's what it is when he says that. That is terrible.
Well, Faramir has a shot to survive if he went to the Houses of Healing, which is, by the way, it's the next chapter. But Denethor is denying that from him. He's pulling him away from the medic, and he's taking him, he's got fire inside him. What should you do for a fever? Ah, yes, I know. Burn the person alive. Yeah, that's really going to help him.
Take note for next time. Yeah.
Yeah, next time I have a fever. Ibuprofen, ridiculous. Get me a match.
It's a really twisted sort of love. It's actually selfishness. It's like,
Yeah.
I messed up with my son, so I guess the best thing for me is to kill myself because there's no hope. If there's no hope, I should kill my son too. It's just several layers of terribleness.
If the only way you can get on the same page with your child is to kill the both of you, you have messed something up. I don't think that's too far to say. I'm pretty sure that's obvious. But that's where
Yeah.
he is the only thing they can agree on is when Faramir is sick and not able to give his input, and Denethor just makes a choice for him to murder the both of them. Thankfully, Baragon steps in the way, to which
Yes.
Denethor says, "Oh, now even my servants don't like me. They've all turned traitor to Gandalf." Oh well, and then Denethor
It's not a
goes and
problem with me. It's a problem with all of them.
yeah, yeah. Maybe if every time you go into a situation, everybody is against you. Maybe it's not everybody. Maybe that's just a you problem. But
Yep.
Denethor basically says, "Oh, well, I can't get Faramir. Oh well," and then goes and burns himself anyway. Um, may as well be master over his own fate one last time, and sets himself on fire, and then just kind of like lays down in the middle with it. And the last thing he holds on to is his little palantir thing. Even in death, he won't give up the corruption and the Sauron stuff.
Yeah.
Depressing.
Very. It's striking. Wow, he had the courage to burn himself alive. It's like,
Yeah.
imagine if that was redirected.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you know you're gonna die, there's a lot more to be accomplished out on the battlefield killing orcs. Which is basically what Gandalf said earlier. Like you could turn this towards something good.
Your place is on the battlefield.
But no. So Rip Denethor, he's gone. Theoden, when Theoden dies, gets a song. All the generals when Rohan when they die, they get a song. Denethor, when he dies, gets a note that if anyone looks in the stone after he's gone, they see his ghost haunting it.
Yep.
He no one writes songs for Denethor's. There's nothing he did worth one. So as much as I'm not really an appreciator of all the poetry, it's depressing he doesn't even get anything. But he did nothing to deserve it. So
that's right.
No one will talk about that. No one wants to remember it. Even the men who helped bring him the torch at the end are just kind of staring into the room, awestruck but not in a good way at what just happened, and kind of just lost without Denethor to tell them what to do. They're just kind of out of it at the end of it.
Yeah, Gandalf is once again here to give us the direct moral.
Yeah.
He looks at Baragon and the surviving servants and says, "You all have been caught in a net of warring duties that you did not weave." It's like, that's a really tough situation.
Yep.
but then he says to everyone who's not Baragond, think if Baragond hadn't committed treason, then you would have just murdered Faramir.
Yeah.
And they weren't thinking about it that way, but they should have.
And I think Faramir being the steward, or the new steward, that would be committing treason itself, wouldn't it? So if Baragond, yeah, he broke the law, but he broke the law so that you guys didn't have to. Is curious, or that's the result of what happened. Interesting. It's like the whole Faramir thing earlier, right? It's impressive that Faramir is willing to obey his father, but it's really stupid what he went and did with Osgiliath and getting himself hurt. At the same way, it's really impressive that the men of Gondor are willing to just be absolutely devoted to their steward. And it's really a shame that they were just raring to help him kill himself so that Gandalf was necessary. In a reasonable situation, Gandalf wouldn't have had to come and save Faramir because everybody else would have said, this is obviously wrong. Let's not do that.
Right.
But nobody did. Except Baragond. Based Baragond. Mostly. There's still consequences. Baragond is, as they're kind of walking down back out of this whole area, Baragond admits that he was the one who killed the porter and took the key and still has the key. It was self-defense. He didn't initiate the violence, but he needed through, and he was in a hurry, and the porter drew a sword on him, so he ended up killing the porter. Gandalf does task him as the new keeper of the key for the moment, but still, you did kill somebody, and there are going to be consequences for that. So anything else on the whole Denethor situation, or should we get into this wrap-up section?
No more from me.
All right. So Gandalf, kind of with prescience, somehow looks out on the battlefield and sees what has happened. He is aware that Theoden has died, I think, is the implication. And because he addresses that and kind of says, well, here are all the consequences. It's kind of like at the end of like a video game RPG where you see you helped this clan in this way, and so they went on to do these things. Well, Gandalf says, I saved Faramir. That was good. But in doing so, I lost Theoden. I could have been out on the battlefield stopping what the Witch King was doing, and the Witch King caused Theoden's death. But because I chose to do the Faramir route, I got Theoden killed, as weird as that sounds. Denethor was really the base cause of it, because if he hadn't been so stupid, none of this would have happened. And if he hadn't continued to waste Gandalf's time, then Gandalf might have been able to get out on the battlefield and help Theoden, but just too late. Denethor, spiteful and hateful to the end. It's crazy to spend so much work getting Rohan halfway across the continent to help you, only to then abandon them in their hour of need and not even send out any soldiers to help, and just kind of try to go and off yourself. That's depressing. One last thing about the Denethor scenario. At the very end, Gandalf says, Faramir should have a choice to submit. It's an honorable thing for a steward to submit to the authority of the king returning.
Oh, yes.
And Denethor, in response to that, when he goes to burn himself, he takes the steward's staff and he breaks it, and then he burns it along with him, which is just another way of taking the stewardship away from Faramir, which is basically taking away his choice to willingly submit, which is incredible. Again, I hate this guy. He's bad.
Yes, he is.
So the movie tried to make him a little sympathetic in the end, and there's a part of him that is sympathetic, but mostly it's just him making really bad choices, and there's a limit to how far my sympathy goes with that.
Yeah, I mean, you can imagine, even if he were grouchy, kind of hopeless, and skeptical of Aragorn, even if he was really skeptical, like if he was focused on actually helping his kingdom, we'd probably still find him very admirable and a good person, you know?
Yeah.
Like
Or
he can grow into those other things, perhaps.
yeah. Or this whole situation exists because he chose to take Faramir from the hospital and go and kill him. If he
Mm-hmm.
had just left Faramir out of it, Gandalf wouldn't be here. It's Pippin saying Denethor is killing Faramir. It's not Denethor killing himself. Gandalf doesn't really care about that. As weird as that is to say, there are more important things to deal with. But Denethor killing Faramir is the main issue. Is why are you doing this? You can't do this, and that's what Gandalf goes in to solve. And so even that is like what you could be much more sympathetic if you left your son to his fate instead of determining his fate for him. But here we are. Gandalf prioritized Faramir, which I think is fair. But in doing so, we lost Theoden, which also fair and nicely dramatic for the book, but still, um, Theoden, great guy, but
Yeah.
it was one or the other, and Gandalf chose Faramir.
Yeah.
That's how
If
it
you
is
think
sometimes.
about, which was the right choice to make, I don't think there's too much more to say than what we said earlier.
Yeah.
I think Gandalf's right that he's the only one who could have feasibly done this,
Mhm.
and it's proved right from the previous chapters. Other people can kill the Witch King apparently,
Yeah.
so it worked out. But you also think Theoden has lived a long, full life and is able to redeem himself.
Yep.
Ultimately, here on the field of battle, Faramir is in mortal danger of having his life stolen from him. Like
Yep.
Theoden was in control of himself, riding to his death.
Mhm.
Faramir is, well, being dragged away to a fire pit.
Yeah. Yeah. Loss of agency. Can't do anything to even save himself or put up any protest. Theoden's also lived, as we would look at it, he's lived a long, full life, and he's made all of his choices, whereas Faramir hasn't. Um, Theoden has a second in command to immediately come in and take over the kingdom. Or Theoden does. Faramir is the second in command to take over the stewardship because Aragorn's not installed yet, and so they're much more disastrous consequences for Gondor if Faramir dies. So, from all sorts of perspectives, it makes sense to go with Faramir, but still, rip Theoden. At least he
Yeah,
went out nobly on a battlefield helping people instead of like Denethor. And it's poetic that their two ends come at the same time, and both of them end because of Denethor's interference, shall we say?
yeah.
So, disappointing. Um, the last, I think the last thing in the chapter is a command to Baragond to report to the chief of the guard on what has happened, including the things that he did, such as killing the porter and killing a couple other servants of the guard, because that is kind of illegal.
Yep.
There is there is no hand waving away of, well, you were trying to do the right thing, so it counts. Like, Gandalf is very appreciative of Baragond's heart and the fact that he wanted to do the right thing, and because of Baragond's action, Faramir got saved. He also killed 3 people, and there is no escaping those things. There are consequences for disobedience, even if you are well intentioned, and Baragond will bear the weight of those things. At the same time, there are blessings or consequences for obedience, such as you saved the life of Faramir, and so maybe even though you will be kicked off the city guard, maybe hopefully the commander is will see fit to assign you to Faramir's guard, and if Faramir survives, you will have a position with him. Um, a lot of times people like to excuse taking bad actions because they wanted the right thing, and to a certain extent, I can sympathize with that. but also if you take the bad action, you are taking the bad action. There are consequences for those things. So,
Yeah.
what Baragon did was ultimately the right thing, but it might cost you your job sometimes. That's just something you have to be willing to sacrifice. So, I like
Yeah.
Baragon. Great
He's great.
side character for the
Oh yeah.
3 pages he's had in the story.
Yeah. I think it's one of the more jarring things is when we meet him, he's kind of he's a kind and measured person, but he has a sense of humor.
Yeah.
That's why he's able to identify and talk with Pippin.
Mhm.
And here he is doing one of the most brutal things we see in the whole Lord of the Rings is a human killing another human, you know?
Yeah.
But
Yeah, well, killing one of your own people and one of the fellow guard members that you've presumably worked with and trained with and grown up with and all sorts of other things.
yeah, brother killing brother. Yeah.
Yeah. It's one thing to have Gondor killing Haradrim because, whatever. It's a very different thing to have guards of the Citadel killing each other. But as you said earlier, or as Gandalf said, you were forced into situations beyond your control. There was no good answer. The better answer was what Baragon did instead of what the other guards did, but still, it's obvious there's not a good answer. There's loss. When someone stupid comes into authority and commands you to do evil things, there is going to be a loss either way it goes, but better to minimize it as much as possible. And that's what Baragon did.
Yeah, I think that's a very good way to say it.
Depressing, but good.
Yeah. There's a lot of good ideas there.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's rough too.
Mm-hmm. Well, good stories have the power to take rough concepts and then represent them in, it's not like it's a happy way, but it is very clear on what was good and what was bad and things that you should live like and things that you definitely shouldn't live like, and I appreciate it
Yeah.
for that.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Turns out the kill yourself chapter is actually the don't kill yourself chapter the
Good
whole
job, Tolkien.
time. Let's go. Love that guy sometimes. Anything else on pyres and burning people alive while we're here?
That's all I've got.
Well, then we will put a pause there and next week cover the Houses of Healing. It'll be nice to have a little bit of a respite after everything horrible has gone down.
Yeah, we get 2 relaxing chapters in a row.
2 is too much. That's boring. I guess I'll reserve judgment until we actually read through them.
We'll see. We'll see.
We'll see. Very cool. Well, thank you for listening, and we'll see you next week.